This lesson is all about mean from a grouped frequency table. The grade today is a 5. Please make sure you've got the title, grade and date into your book. Last lesson we were looking at frequency tables. They were a very good and quick way of working out mean and other averages when we've got a lot of data. One problem that they do bring though is what happens if there are a lot of different possible numbers that the data could take. So for instance, the example that we are going to use first is weight of a dog. Unlike last lesson, when we only had a set number of values, the weight of a dog could be anything. This may be the first time you've encountered inequality symbols. You've probably seen them at primary school or maybe year 7, with your primary school teachers probably referring to them as crocodile mouths. We'll try and avoid talking about them like that now that we are at high school. This top group here that says 0 less than W less than or equal to 10. The W in the middle refers to weight, because obviously the table is all about weights of the dog. So what it is saying here, that all of the weights in this table are bigger than 0, but less than, but maybe equal to 10. So any dog that weighs between 0 and 10 kilograms would go in this group. The second group down also starts on 10. However, it does not have the additional line underneath. So this group is for all dogs that are bigger than 10, up to and including 20 kilograms. This pattern follows all the way down. I'll just give you a couple more moments to get a copy of this table into your book. Make sure you leave 2 additional blank columns at the end. You'll only need a little bit of space in here, probably about the same size as your frequency column. The difference with this table is obviously that we cannot now do what we did on the last ones. For the last one, the first step was to multiply the first 2 columns together. For this column, I cannot multiply this entire group by 3. So what we do is we set up a number that we use to represent that group. The thing that we use to represent the group is known as the midpoint, i.e. the middle of the group. So the first thing I'd like you to do on your completed table is put the topic or the title of that column is midpoint. Hopefully you can write it a little bit neater than I can. This is whatever number is halfway between the start and the end of the group. So in this case, halfway between 0 and 10 would be 5. Halfway between 10 and 20 is 15. Between 20 and 30 is 25. And as you can see, we're noticing a little bit of a pattern here with the numbers. So 30 to 40 is 35. 40 to 50 is 45. And 50 to 60, obviously, is 55. This can now be used to do the first step that we did last lesson. We are now going to multiply together the frequency and the midpoint. We're going to put this information in the final column. I'm just going to put F times M. If you've got more space, you can put more detail, but this will do. You don't get marked down on what you actually write at the title of the column. So for the first one, I'm going to take 3 multiplied by 5. In other words, what that's saying is there are 3 dogs who we are going to say are roughly 5 kilograms. So altogether those 3 dogs would be 15 kilograms. We keep using the same idea all the way down the table. 5 times 15 gives us 75. 7 times 25 is 175. 9 times 35, don't forget you can use a calculator for this if you wish. That gives us 315. 4 times 45 is 180. And finally 2 times 55 is 110. The next step is very, very similar to last lesson. This final column represents the weights of all of the dogs in each of these sections. So our next step is to find the total weight of all of the dogs. We do this by adding together that final column. Again, you can use a calculator on this, giving us a grand total of 870. The next step is to share that weight equally between all of the dogs. Now, don't make the mistake that a lot of people do, and that's adding up the midpoint. These are just numbers to represent the middle of the group. Adding them together does nothing. What we need to do is add together the frequency column. So again, adding these numbers together gives us an answer of 30. Now, the slight difference with the final section is that we don't have the actual mean. What we have calculated is the estimate of the mean. The reason it is known as an estimate is because we have not used exact numbers. That 5 kilograms for the 0 to 10 group, we don't know if those dogs actually were 5 kilograms. They may all have been closer to 10, closer to 0, or spaced out completely within the group. So we call it an estimate because it is just roughly what the mean will be. We do the same calculation, so we take 870, that's the total weight of all of the dogs, divided by how many dogs we have, so 30. And again, using your calculator, that gives us an answer of 29. Just so you've got a second example of this in your books, I am now going to go through this second example, this time referring to height of flowers. Please can you copy this into your book, making sure that you're using a pencil and a ruler. Take your time making sure that the inequality symbols look like these do on the board. If you can't see these, or if you may be a little bit scruffy, I'll just zoom in on one. So that top group is 0, less than h, less than or equal to, that's what this extra line at the bottom here means, 20. The symbols follow pattern all the way down. So I'll just give you a couple of moments to copy that table into your book. Just as last time, the first blank column is going to represent the midpoint because we need a number that is going to represent each group. Alright, to save myself the same issue as last time, I'm just going to put mid. So halfway between 0 and 20, well that's 10. Between 20 and 40 is 30. At this point, just because I know there are some questions on the worksheet that you're going to do in a minute, where the midpoint is a little trickier to find, we'll just quickly mention another little cheat that you can do to find the midpoint. This, exactly the same as what we did when we were looking at median from a list. We can add the start and the end point together and then divide by 2. And that will tell us what is halfway between the two numbers. So for instance on this one, 40 plus 60 is 100. Divide that by 2 is 50. So the midpoint is 50. Which kind of makes sense. Halfway between 40 and 60, we know is 50. So that's just another way that you can do when you get on to some of the questions later. Halfway between 60 and 80 is 70. And between 80 and 100 is 90. We now do the exact same thing with that final column. We are going to do the frequency multiplied by the midpoint. So again, don't forget to use your calculator. If you make a mistake, at least you are going to be doing it a little bit quicker than taking a lot of time to calculate something that might get a little bit wrong. So calculator is very advisable here. So we've got 7 multiplied by 10 to give me 70. 9 times 30 is 270. 11 times 50 is 550. 4 times 70 is 280. And finally 1 times 90, nice and easy, 90. Same step again. We add up the total. So this effectively means the total height of all of the flowers added together. If we add that together, that gives us 1,260. We need to share that equally between how many flowers there are. Remember, that's represented by the frequency column. So if we add up all the frequencies, that gives us 32. So again, down at the bottom of the table, the final bit of working is we are going to write estimate of mean, and I would like you to write that with every question to show that you understand that it is not an accurate answer. It is a number that we can use to represent, but might be a little bit off. We do 1,260 divided by 32. If you put that into your calculator, that comes out as an answer of 39.375. Make sure that when you're doing the worksheet, you draw all the tables out with pencil and ruler. Make sure everything is neat. The tables in the worksheet have only 2 columns. You will need to make sure that you have 4